Today on the Nerdy Gritty, can you judge a sequel based on the other movies in its franchise?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nerdy Gritty, where we delve deep into the details of pop culture. I am Dez.
And I'm Fox.
Fox, I got a really, every week I have a very
important question.
They're always very important questions.
Insanely important. They keep me up at night.
This is the most important of questions.
Okay, I believe you.
Do you watch any anime at all? Have you ever watched anime?
Oh, have I before?
Yeah.
Yes, I watched a lot of...
Well, you watched Avatar, right? It's an American anime.
Yes, but traditional anime... I watched a lot of Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, yeah.
I watched a lot of Death Note. I watched a little bit of, I've watched a lot of Dragon Ball.
Yes.
Pretty much all of Z,
yes.
Most of Dragon Ball, and a tiny bit of Super. And then, mostly just the big main, the ones that you would know about if you weren't into anime.
Yeah. So... But these days you don't watch much anime, right?
No, I want to, but I try sometimes,
okay.
And it's hard for me to... I can't get past anime things.
One thing that I really love that is happening right now in the anime world is the subs not dubs is dying.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. There's a lot of people there are a lot of people that are just like, hey, I'm a parent of 5 and my kids can't read yet, but this is a really good anime. And so we watch dubs.
Right.
Or people that are like, hey, I have dyslexia. I can't read like that I have to pause over and over again to make sure I'm getting things right. So no, I can't watch.
Yeah, the hard part for me,
very different
when it comes to like Japanese with subtitles is, I mean, it's like watching a foreign movie. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I can't really tell like tone. Like what's supposed to be coming across, like how they're feeling, especially in an animated something where you don't have all of the facial cues a lot of times. And so I like listening to an actual voice, even if it's not exactly what they're saying in the Japanese.
These days for me, it's that I multitask a lot. Yeah. Like I put like a
100%.
I'm like midway through Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood because
it's the condensed version or
it's okay. So and we're getting a little off track already, but so there's the Full Metal Alchemist manga, which is one of the best mangas I've ever read. It is phenomenal.
I think I actually read Full Metal.
Then there was the Full Metal Alchemist anime, and when the anime came out, it was putting out episodes much faster than the manga, and they diverged huge,
which is cool. I like that. Just tell different stories if you can't.
Except for the other one wasn't great. The anime wasn't
there's
a great
the problem.
Story. Yeah, and so. Then when people, like, years later, when people start talking about how good the manga was, they're like, let's make one that's more true to the manga.
Sure.
So that's kind of what Brotherhood is.
Right.
But I ask you this because I just watched season 6 of Voltron.
Voltron, the Netflix show.
It's an American anime, but it's very, very true to the anime form, Japanese anime form. And again, I think that we have become very good at making anime worldwide, formats, not just a Japanese format. And so I will just call it an anime, but it is really, really good. And one that I think is a really good introductory anime for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I encourage you to watch it.
Those gateway anime.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And especially because, like, the first couple seasons are like 13 episodes. But after that, it's like 6 or 7 episodes a season.
Oh.
Yeah.
How long are they?
22 minutes to half an hour.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. So they work really hard on not having those really...
Get rid of the filler
episodes. Yeah, really frustrating filler episodes.
I hate filler so much.
Yeah. And so they tell a story, and they tell it really, really well. Okay. And it's intense, and it's good. Yeah. And I like it a lot. So that's one of the things I've been up to. What have you been up to, man?
I've seen a lot of movies, and I'm not going to really talk about them.
Not all of them, because we only have so much time.
Well, sure. But also because I've been doing reviews on our channel.
Yep.
So they'll be coming out this week. Some have already come out. So my full reviews, which are like 6 or 7 minutes long, are all on there. So go look at them. Most of the movies I've seen. I've still got a few to do. But let's see. Tag. Mm-hmm. Comedy with John Hamm and others about grown men playing tag. I think it's a funny comedy premise. It just wasn't clever or funny. That's how I like. most of my rules about like what makes a movie good kind of go out the window when it comes to comedies.
Right.
To me, if a movie makes me laugh, if it's a comedy that makes me laugh, then it's a good comedy. For the most part. There's still some things that need to be said. But, which I understand is hypocritical when it comes to other kinds of movies. But it didn't really make me laugh. There were a few moments, but mostly it was just like, this guy got punched in the face, or he got kicked in the nuts. Oh.
Slapstick comedy is just not as good as it used to be.
It needs to be it can be done well.
Yeah.
Any kind of comedy can be done well. It needs to not be constant. But when it's unexpected or just, certain situations can work for it. Tag didn't work for me. I didn't think it was funny. Don't see it. What else? I'll go with the highlights. Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's fine.
Yeah.
It was one of those Marvel movies where it's like, oh, it definitely wasn't bad, but it wasn't like great.
I feel like that's going to be the Ant-Man series.
Yeah.
To me, I feel like the Ant-Man series is Marvel's way of being like, let's make more movies.
Yes. Who else?
Okay, what super famous people are going to get? No, let's not do that.
Who else we got?
Yeah, I mean, Paul Rudd.
Ant-Man, I guess, was an Avenger at one point. Yeah. Let's get him in there.
Evangeline Lilly's cool, I guess.
Everybody loves Lost. Let's get Kate from Lost.
And the character Tariel.
Yeah. Nope. It was fine. Paul Rudd is the best part because I like his comedy timing.
Yeah.
He tells jokes well, and he's a likable dude.
He is really likable.
But those movies are just so bland. Like, if Ant-Man just showed up in the Avengers movies and did a cool thing, or like in Civil War, that'd be perfect.
Yeah.
Like, if he cleverly used Ant-Man, I don't need to know a whole emotional backstory of this guy.
I like a one movie.
Sure.
And then
I guess an introduction.
Cool, we're good.
Yeah. But to me, it's like if Falcon got his own. It's like, I guess it could be okay, but it's not necessary.
That's a good point, actually.
It's not necessary.
Falcon is a character that...
I wouldn't really need to see it. I understand who he is and what his motivation is. Anyway, so it was pretty bland. You'll see it if you like Marvel. It doesn't matter what I say. But as a movie, it was fine.
Yeah.
And then the one that was the most interesting that I've seen in the last couple weeks. First Purge? No. First. I saw First Purge. That was better than I thought. That's my review. First Reformed.
Oh, right.
Right. About a pastor of what in the movie is referred to as a tourist church in upstate New York. Basically, the plot is about a pastor who's dealing with depression and dealing with lots of things, actually. There's a little bit of his backstory. What I loved about it was, as a pastor and as a Christian, I always am looking for movies and any kind of art that depicts the Christian life in a honest way.
Yeah.
I hate when they're just used as stock characters. There's a part in an episode of Sons of Anarchy when the Sons of Anarchy are going to a place to do a thing, and they think it's this building, and they walk in, they bust into the place, and it's not the right place, and there's like a Bible study happening with a pastor, and they're literally singing Kumbaya, my Lord, and then the pastor walks out when all the Sons of Anarchy, these drug-running or gun-running bikers, are like, sorry, pastor, sorry, father, and they're leaving, and the pastor walks out, and he's like, there's still time to save your souls, boys! Like, and it's like, no, why would you
nobody does that.
There are people who would do that.
That's true.
But it's stupid.
Yeah.
It makes them a caricature, not a character.
Right.
Anyway, First Reformed did a very good job of depicting a pastor dealing with pastory things. It shows him doing pastory things that nobody thinks about, like sweeping, especially like a much more traditional church. Mm-hmm. But it also shows him like dealing with counseling and these things, but also just the frustrations of doubting your own faith, even if you're a pastor of 30 years now, and all those things like that. It was really good. The ending was interesting. Is worth watching for sure, especially if you're interested in honest depictions of religion.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We've got kind of this back and forth when we start that, and I'm actually really enjoying this more and more, that you bring the new movies and I bring the movies that are just popping up on Netflix and Amazon.
Sure.
That I'm liking this. Van Helsing, the movie starring Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale, just popped up on Netflix.
I just remember Dracula yelling his
name.
And
I remember seeing that. I was probably like 20 years old, and I thought it was the coolest.
Me too, and I was like 12 or 13.
It was so cool,
I was like,
man.
This movie's for me.
Yes, and it was great. And I will say...
That's Wolverine!
He looks so young.
Yes.
He has aged well, but he's definitely aged.
Right.
I will say this though, it's got a 5/4 main theme, like a main theme song that's in a 5/4 time, and it does this really cool job of, for a gothic horror movie, the score does this job of like leaving you half unsettled because you want it to be in a 4/4 time, and then like your body, your kind of like rhythm goes to get that next measure, and it doesn't hit, right. and then it hits one measure later, just throws you off just this littlest bit, and it was really cool. I like that the 5/4 time theme. It was the only really good part of the movie.
Van Helsing to me is Constantine, but a little less good.
It was okay. So
they're both kind of like eye roller groaning movies, but also kind of awesome.
So okay, have you seen Van Helsing in any recently?
Time? No.
Okay, I encourage you to go see it.
Okay. I just mostly I remember that Frankenstein's monster is in it.
Yes.
And also the scene where he's got an automatic crossbow,
yes.
and he's shooting bolts dipped in holy water at vampire women.
It's so cool.
It's like this. As a 13-year-old, I was like, this is all I've ever wanted. This is the greatest movie of all time.
So we talked recently about movies that are just meant to be fun, and if that makes them good enough or not.
Sure.
Because I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but I was just saying that X movie, it was a fun movie. It's not very good, but
in our personal conversation, right? I remember this now.
We were talking about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and I'm like, It wasn't a great movie, but it's fun, and I really enjoyed it. And you're like, that's not good enough.
Right.
To me, a Van Helsing movie is example of why it is good enough. Van Helsing wasn't that fun. It just wasn't.
To me, that's one that's like mostly just kind of whatever.
Yeah.
It's not bad enough to be fun because it's bad.
Right.
It's just also it takes itself maybe too seriously might be the issue. It has some jokes,
does.
But it takes itself too seriously.
It does.
And that's always a detriment if it's not a serious movie.
I'm going to quote Fox here, and I'm going to say it was kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Like just it was just kind of dumb, and it was real tough because it was trying to very much pay homage to classic gothic horror movies. Mm-hmm. Everything was very purposely overacted. Kate Beckinsale's a decent actress; she can act.
She's fine.
Hugh Jackman is a good actor.
He's great. A good actor. He's a great actor.
And Faramir, I can't remember the actor's name.
David Wenham.
David Wenham is a good actor.
You got a Lord of the Rings actor. I give you their
right, and these are the three main characters in it, and they're decent actors, all three of them. But all three of them seem to be bad actors in this movie.
Yes,
because
it's probably the script's problem,
and it's because they're meant to be overacted. Yes. Everything's meant to be overacted,
right?
And it's bad because of it.
Yeah,
the vampires are the worst part. They all are A, not good actors, and B, heavily overacted. I mean, ridiculously overacted.
They have like all the baby vampires in the eggs. It's so terrible.
It's so ridiculous.
I'm gonna do our transition here.
All right.
Speaking of movies that attempt to pay homage to earlier genres, you've recently been watching the Indiana Jones
movies
quadrilogy.
Yeah, with my wife, and I feel comfortable saying quadrilogy these days. I do.
Sure.
Before I didn't, but the fourth one was fun because something that I kind of realized when Fox and I were talking about is my wife and I hadn't seen the Indiana Jones movies, any of them, in probably a couple of years. I own them. They're fantastic, but we just hadn't popped them in and watched them in a long time. And Crystal Skull came up on Amazon Prime.
Oh, yeah.
And we're like, let's watch it.
Let's give it another go.
And all four are on there, but we chose Crystal Skull to watch because we were both like, well, I got to edit video, and she was sewing for the Renaissance Festival. Mm. What's a movie that we're not really going to pay attention to?
That's a good one to choose.
And so we put that on in the background, and it actually kind of was a little bit too attractive to both of us. Like we both didn't edit or sew as much as we planned on because it was fun. It was good enough, and it wasn't great by any means. But I started thinking to myself, what was it about this movie that made it so hated at the time? And it was because immediately we wanted it to be Last Crusade, Temple of Doom, Raiders Lost Ark.
Wanted it to be an Indiana Jones movie.
Wanted it to be an Indiana Jones movie. If it were X-adventure movie, and it didn't star Indiana Jones, but it starred Guy, with whatever name, whatever.
Bill so-and-so.
I think it would have been a classic summer blockbuster that a few people are going to like, and it's going to kind of go down and be forgotten about like a lot of other summer blockbusters. But at the time, it would have been just fine. But instead, Crystal Skull pulled so much vitriol because of the comparison to the original Indiana Jones trilogy. So here's the question that we're asking today is that fair? Just because...
Should it be judged that way?
Should it be judged that way, or should it be taken on its own? What do you think, Fox?
I think when a movie is called Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and the other movies in the first one was just called Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right.
Then when Indiana Jones became popular, they made them Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Indiana Jones. So they are clearly like continuing the story. This has a lot of references to older movies. The other three, like reliance on references, not only like actual story character references, but like
Lost Ark. Yeah,
themes and just there's so much reliance on what you already know about Indiana Jones.
Right.
When a movie like this does relies on that so much, I think it's absolutely fair.
Yeah.
I think it should be, because they are trying to get you to think about those old Indiana Jones movies while watching this one. If they were just like, here's another Indiana Jones, and it's like the other three kind of reference each other a little bit, like the sword trick thing comes back, like where the guy's doing the sword trick and he just shoots him.
Right.
Like that comes back, but they play it off like it's a joke. But other than that, all those are pretty much independent stories from one another. And this one is an independent story, but it relies on your preconceived knowledge of Indiana Jones so much that if we were to say you can't judge it based on that, then we can't judge the movie at all. That's what the movie is to me. It's relying on it because there was such a time gap in between this one and the other three.
Yeah, if this movie came out and was not an Indiana Jones movie, everybody would look at it and say, this is clearly a ripoff of Indiana Jones.
You say it's a ripoff of Indiana Jones, and then it would be as popular as Van Helsing.
Right.
Kind of fun, but forgotten immediately.
Right. See, my thoughts are twofold on this. First of all, I will say no, that I don't think the quality of the movie should be judged based on the quality of the previous movies. And to me, and one big example of this is The Incredibles. The Incredibles 2 is a very, very good movie.
Absolutely.
But if I personally put it right up next to The Incredibles Part 1, which to me is a 10 out of 10 movie, it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, it's a perfect movie.
Then it's not as good. And I walk away from The Incredibles 2 thinking to myself, it was really, really good, but, not as good as the first one. And that's just not fair. That's not fair. Incredibles 2 was fantastic. It was great. And it shouldn't be fair for me to go see that second movie and to myself, I would probably knock half a point out of my out of 10 score, if not a full point out of my out of 10 score, just because I've tucked it up next to this titan of a movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull suffered in a similar way, not the same way. Obviously, Crystal Skull is nowhere near as good of a movie as Incredibles Part 2.
It is, if the bar is set, hypothetically at whatever line you want to set in your imagination for all the original trilogy, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is miles below it.
Yes.
It is based on whatever scale you want to judge it on.
Yes.
It is nowhere near.
Yeah, to me, my favorite Indiana Jones movie is Last Crusade, and so it's extra rough that it's Last Crusade and then Crystal Skull after that. Yeah. And so
I like Temple of Doom.
Of course you do. We've talked about this before.
Because of its risk taking.
And because it's so ridiculous. And I love it, again, paying homage to old adventure movies. Anyway, but so to say that a movie has to live up to its predecessors is unfair to me. But we will do it. We can't not do it.
Right.
There's just something within us that is going to, if it's a sequel, we have the originals in our brain, and then therefore expectations are created whether we like it or not. Is it fair? No. Is it going to happen? Yes. What I say we need to do is kind of what you and I are doing now, is stopping after the fact and looking back and saying, okay, let's remove my expectations from the first movies. And so for example, kind of in reverse here, the X-Men trilogy.
Yeah.
The original X-Men trilogy. The first X-Men movie was fine.
Yeah, it wasn't anything amazing.
No.
It was fun at the time.
And the second one was about the same.
No. Second one's way better.
It was, but I'm not going to say way better.
Rewatch those movies.
Yeah?
X-Men 2 is great.
It's been a long time. It has.
Yeah, it's great because it doesn't rely on just villain. It's actually more interesting than that. Anyway, we'll move on.
And then X-Men 3 was not a great movie. It was
below the other two.
But because the first two to me were pretty mediocre, I was satisfied with it. It was fine. But when you look at that movie, if you were to take that out of it and just look at it by itself, it's a bad movie. Like, it's not great.
And I would say the same thing about Indiana Jones 4. Even taking it out of context of Indiana Jones, it's a bad movie to me.
Yeah.
Yes. But I want to address this whole, like, can we place the expectations of an Indiana Jones movie on the new one? Like, if Metallica's next album were a dubstep album, if it's the same four of them, but the music is just like electronic house, like that's what they came out with, and it said on the cover Metallica. Would it be? It would be perfect.
No. I would fight you, but go.
It would be perfectly fair to say. Let's just say, even if it was a good dubstep album, if that's a thing, I don't know. It'd be the first one, I guess. No, but it would be perfectly fair, in my opinion, for myself and other Metallica fans to say, wow, this is a bad Metallica album. This is bad Metallica music.
Okay.
Because they're trying to say, hey, listen to our Metallica music, and then giving you music that is, compared to the rest of what you expect and what they've promised in the past, is not Metallica music.
Okay. So, I want to address two things. Number one, your actual points.
Yes.
Which is a good point, and I want to come back to that. Number two, though, what I'll say first, as a shorter point, I don't think that Crystal Skull is Metallica's dubstep album. I think Crystal Skull is Symphony and Metallica.
No, I think Crystal Skull is Saint Anger.
Saint Anger.
Very similar on the surface, maybe, but when you think about it, far below in quality.
Or maybe Fuel.
Well, Fuel's a song.
Or not Fuel.
There's Load and Reload.
No, that's Load. Yeah, Load.
But no, Saint Anger is by far their worst. But
my point is, Load was
maybe
like
just
kind of a
90s
different
Metallica.
Kind of a
their
different,
alternative. Time. Their alternica.
Yeah, and it was different for them.
Yes,
but still good. I like Load and Reload, or the Megadeth album Risk.
You're right. Dubstep is maybe the bad comparison, but it's like Saint Anger coming out and it being like drastically different than what they've done before.
But you still make a good point here, where what if Metallica did do that and it was a good dubstep album? Is it fair for people who are fans of Metallica to say, what are you doing?
Yes.
Why?
Right. No, I would say, hey, look, James and the gang, you do what you want to do, but don't try to get us to buy into a Metallica album when it's not that.
Right.
Go make some other movie. Don't get us to don't try to trick us. That's what I feel like Crystal Skull was.
Right.
It was kind of a trick.
Because here's the truth, and we've talked about this before, but we'll mention it again because it's important at this point, is most often scripts are like 75 to 60% written in that area. And I mean, they're fully written, but usually, especially these days when IPs are more important than actual stories, they will take a script and they're like, let's make this an Indiana Jones script. Like the script's pretty much pre-written, and they'll just be like, let's make this Indiana Jones.
Well, if the behind the scenes stuff is to be believed, that's not what actually happened here.
Really?
This is a Steven Spielberg.
It's hard to believe for me.
Like Lucasfilm, like they wrote it to be. Yeah, it is, and it went through a lot of different things. They had a lot of other ideas. This was kind of somehow their best choice. I don't know, but it's true though.
Well, for example, I found this out recently. Die Hard 3, Die Hard with a Vengeance, with Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis, was supposed to be the next Lethal Weapon movie.
Really?
With Danny Glover and Mel Gibson. But they decided it was kind of too much. Like, they like the direction that they were going of both of them are now getting too old for this S.
Yeah.
And so they went with Lethal Weapon 4, which is a different type of, like, direction for that. And then they made this Die Hard 3. Yep. Or on the flip side, the movie Tears of the Sun, where there are soldiers, starring Bruce Willis, and there are soldiers that are helping, like, a displaced, like, village in the middle of the jungle.
Right.
Was supposed to be Die Hard 3. But then they thought that was a little bit over John McClane's head.
Right.
And so they made Tears of the Sun instead.
Well, and then they just completely forgot that.
Right.
Anyway.
And so that they do this stuff with scripts all the time. I find it hard to believe that Indiana Jones 4 was not that.
That's what, they can say whatever they want in the behind the scenes kind of footage or interviews and stuff like that. But if you're to believe that, then this was actually written. And I don't know if that's better or worse.
I would say worse for sure.
Like, really? This is what you guys came up with?
Yeah. But my thought process in this area is to say that, like, a lot of times they're trying to, like you're saying, just pander. Be like, this isn't general sci-fi adventure movie. This is Indiana Jones sci-fi adventure movie. So please give me more money. You know what I mean? And yeah, that's a problem. At that point, they are creating expectations where they shouldn't be before. It's Metallica's dubstep album where they're creating expectations where they shouldn't have been there before. And so that's a fair point. It is. And it's rough because they have to know the quality of these movies that are coming out, right? Like...
Oh, 100%. When a bad movie comes out, the people who made it know it's bad.
Yeah.
That for sure.
And so to me, like, I know there are times that people are like, well, I thought it would do better, like the Justice League movies, and Superman versus Batman was one that Fox execs were like, or was it Fox?
Sony,
Warner Brothers execs were just all about. They're like, yes, this movie, and it did not go as
it did not go well for them.
But there has to be some sort of knowledge of the quality of your film, and to make it understanding that it's going to be compared to these powerhouses of films past. Yeah, okay, so I get what you're saying. I really do understand.
I would have a better opinion of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull if it did not have as many references and it did not lean on your preconceived knowledge of Indiana Jones as much. It doesn't have the same, like, if what's her name, Marion Ravenwood, wasn't in it.
Right.
She didn't have anything to do in the movie. She was just there for recognition. Like, my favorite part of the movie was the entirely new character of Mutt. I thought he was great. I thought the character was great. I don't mind the acting either. I don't mind Shia LaBeouf, really. But I thought the character of Mutt was great. He was a really good foil. He was basically, like, it continued the tradition of Indiana Jones being like a hothead, like, action tough guy to his father, Sean Connery's, like, intellectual, like, naivete. And now it's like Indiana Jones has become the intellectual who... We've seen him do all these things before, and now Mutt comes up and he's like this greaser with, like, you know, like, willing to start fights, and you're like, and even Indiana Jones has a limit. You know, it's kind of fun.
I love. There's a really good moment in it when, like, Indiana Jones is trying to do his Indiana Jones thing where he's just, like, planning on the run. The Indiana Jones gambit where you make it up as you go.
Sure, just
like, and he's doing this, like, and Marion's trying to talk to him. And she's like, you know, Indy, and he's like, you know, Indy, he's dropped out of school, and he's like, well, school's not for some people, and he's probably gonna do better, you know, in the mechanical world anyway. And then they keep going, and then she's like, Indy, he's your son. What? He's your son.
Why'd you
let him drop out of school?
Right. It just shows even Indiana Jones has his character flaws. I mean, he's always had flaws. He's never a perfect person, but it's just fun to see that, like, to give you a new side of a character you thought you knew about. Right. That's great. And Mutt plays that role that plot device very well. He's also just fun. There's a great motorcycle chase.
Yeah.
Which is great and couldn't have happened without Mutt because Indiana Jones doesn't have a motorcycle. Like, it was just a fun chase through the school and all.
Although there's one point in which they go, like, it's Russian people following them, and then they go through an anti-communist protest. And at some point I'm like, why not just get off of that motorcycle and say, hey, these Russians are chasing us, and they're going to get mobbed by 500.
Yeah. I also hate that protest. What was the point of that? Like, it just felt like, hey,
well, because that was just period accurate. It really is.
Well, not in the 50s.
Yeah.
Did they have, like, protests against communism?
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was more of the 60s is when... Anyway, whatever.
Better Dead Than Red was a big
It was a
protest
phrase,
thing.
sure. I don't know if they, on a college campus, had an anti-communism, like, rally like that. I don't know. It felt weird and out of place. It felt like trying to, like, sell the whole communism thing. Anyway,
but to say that because of all of these things, it should be divorced from the original trilogy is unfair.
Right.
So let me actually go this way then, because you're starting to sway me, and I'm getting to more of a middle ground here. Let's ask about this then. What about spiritual successors? What about, like, the Hobbit prequels compared to the Lord of the Rings trilogy? If you were to try to put the Hobbit prequels directly next to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, they would be bad movies.
Invisible in comparison.
Yes.
Not just pale. They would be overshadowed. Lord of the Rings is, just a giant.
Yes.
And it's just this tiny little speck.
And to me, I think that's the flaw that I had in it. I talk a lot about how much I disliked Desolation of Smaug. I did not like that movie.
Yeah, no, I think that's also fair. I think it's fair when, especially, again, they are incorporating characters, like they're like those movies line up Bilbo, specifically. Gollum, they just go right into each other. They are the same story.
Yes.
This is Bilbo remembering something, not an entirely different story. It starts basically in Lord of the Rings time, and this is all a flashback, which we forget sometimes because... Anyway, so I think it's fair, especially since it's the same company, the same the same makers, the same, like, special effects companies, and when all of these things are like, wait, you could do that. Why did you do this? It's like, what's possible, and they just didn't. They chose not to.
Right.
And you're like, okay, sure, regardless of whether or not these movies on their own are good or bad, what could have been is always going to be there and is going to be impossible to ignore.
I mean, here's what I'll say, actually, and this is kind of where I'm landing to, is you're not wrong, but...
Sure, I understand. So, let's try to completely ignore, as much as we can, the Indiana Jones trilogy, for example, and just say, Crystal Skull. Is it a bad movie or is it a good movie?
I'd say it's a middling movie. I'd say it's a movie like a lot of other summer blockbusters that get forgotten and left in the background. It's a fun movie, one that I wouldn't have been happy to see in theaters, but would have been really glad to make sure that I saw when it came out on video. One that I would have watched and enjoyed, and maybe even watched a second or third time and enjoyed it. You know what I mean? Like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I think that would be a good comparison for it. A movie that is way fun and is real exciting. But if I'm on a quality movie,
that's not going to be your choice.
LXG is not going to be the extraordinary spelled with an E, people.
They didn't want to call it leg.
Leg.
Sean Connery in the new film Leg. I want to address here. I'm going to go into it. My problem with describing a movie as fun.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with it in general. Movies should be fun to watch.
Right.
I don't care, unless it's, you're not going to say I had fun watching Schindler's List. Like, not all movies are fun to watch.
Enjoyable, I guess.
Sure, you can enjoy watching
edifying,
No, but fun.
maybe.
Fun.
I don't know.
Fun's the word we go with, though, most of the time.
Yeah.
I even say movies are fun, but fun is a term to me that takes away any criticism or any room to criticize. Mm-hmm. If I say, if I tell you, wow, that Transformers 3 was bloated, it was far too long, all the robot designs are really stupid and look all the same, the character development is non-existent, nobody has any character, nobody starts in one place and ends up in somewhere any different, they're all the same, characters disappear halfway through the movie and it doesn't matter, the special effects is clearly the focus, it's mostly action and there's no plot to it. The editing it's classic Michael Bay, where it's just constantly moving and bombastic and loud, and it gives you a headache to watch. Wow, what a bad movie! And then you tell me, well, it was fun though. It was cool, big robots fighting each other. You've just completely ignored all of the things that make a piece of art good or bad, and just say it's fun. And you are removing the not only, you're not just saying, oh, I liked it, or it was good or bad. You don't get, you're removing the possibility of any criticism. And doing that stops improvement.
That's okay. That's a really good point right there. And what I'm about to say is going to build both contradict and build on that. So here's how I'm going to keep with our topic and include your conversation of fun. Transformers 1 was a fun movie. I saw the first Transformers movie. It wasn't good.
No.
It wasn't great, but it was fun. And I enjoyed watching it, and I watched it a few more times after that. I didn't buy it. I owned like 400 DVDs at one point, and that was not one of the ones that I owned.
Right.
But I'm not sad that I watched it. It was an enjoyable movie. I left having a good time, and I'm not sad that I saw it. Not great, but it was fun. Transformers 2, on the other hand, was not. It was dumb. And it was stupid. I saw it in theaters. I went and I paid big money for it. Well, it was like $7.50 at the time. But I went and saw it in theaters, and I left thinking to myself, that was stupid.
Yeah.
It tried to be fun, but it was so stupid.
Borderline racist at times. Maybe not even borderline.
Yeah, like,
he's fully in the territory of racism.
Yes, I understand that they're robots, but there's a pretty clear reference that you're trying to make here.
Yes.
Racists.
Yes.
But to me, that's where, number one, even in comparison to the first movie, when you look back on, it's a mediocre movie, I guess. It was fun. I enjoyed watching it. But then movie number 2 was just bad. And even in comparison with those two, Transformers 2 is still a failure. And then I think I saw Transformers 3, and I think it was a better movie than 2, but still not a good movie. 2 is the worst by far to me. I've actually seen 4 of the
me too.
12 or whatever there are right now. But, and so to kind of keep building on this, to compare movies, even just based on saying that something is fun, I'm starting to, like you said, you're starting to sway me in as much as saying, like, I went in expecting a mediocre but fun movie and was still disappointed. That is an incredible failure.
Yeah. When I'm not even expecting a good movie and maybe just for my brain to be entertained or like for a little while and it doesn't work, then that's a bad movie.
Like when my expectations are low and they're still not met. And so at that point, if we can say that Transformers 2 is an extra failure because my expectations are low, why can't we then say that movies that are good compared to their predecessors are that much better because they became better than their predecessors?
Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Way better than any other Mad Max.
Yeah.
Doesn't make the first one or second one any worse.
You're right. And so, yeah, you're swaying me more and more as we continue this conversation here. So I think the Transformers are one that I think are a really good conversation for this, and saying that as you compare all of them together, you can really see the faults and like the failings that are in there.
And they never get better.
No.
They're doubled down on.
Yeah, it's exactly. They're doubled down on the action. So, okay, then here's what I'll say on both the idea of fun and on the comparisons to this one is a comparison to movies in its, because it's a standalone movie, but this is in comparison to its genre, Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim, as far as plot and stuff goes, was not a great movie in that way. It was predictable and simple.
Oh, the bare bones of the plot, yeah, it's very simple.
Yeah,
the big robots fighting big monsters, and they do a thing.
And why are we doing that? Look, don't pay attention to the why. We're going to give you a lot of pseudoscience reasons, but that's not the point. But it was so much fun, and especially in comparison to its genre of the giant robots and or giant like the beasts, kaiju movies. It did a great job.
Yeah,
it was fantastic in that right. So, in a situation like this, my question to you is: can we compare movies to their genre? Can I compare Van Helsing to the Gothic movie genre and judge it on that?
It doesn't want you to, because then in any way it's bad.
Yeah.
But so, for another example, can we compare Indiana... So the Indiana Jones movies, if you don't know, are all homages to like classic like adventure serial movies. 30s and 40s. The fourth one, however, shifts.
Yes.
They, by their own admission, are attempting now to go to the 50s, like B-movie sci-fi movies, like we'll go with Day After Tomorrow, or The Day the Earth Stood Still, or there's a million different ones. Yeah. It Came from Outer Space is probably a name of one. I don't know. I just made it up, though. I'm sure it is. Yeah. So that's what they're trying to do, is what they tell you in I think it's George Lucas himself, who was he was like a producer, I think, in an official role, producer. But he's there.
More and more people are just telling George Lucas, "Hey, buddy, there's your chair over there. That's the George chair.
I wrote you this script.
No,
oh, this is great. We're gonna put it right on the fridge. This is great. Put a sticker on it. A+.
There's a gold star for you. Anyway,
so when we say like genre movies, Indiana Jones, while a lot of us will just consider it action movie trilogy, it's really not the same as like let's go with, what's that rock movie coming out, the Skyscraper movie. It's just an action movie with a guy doing an action thing. It doesn't really pay homage to anything specific. It's not, I don't know, as far as I know, it's not a remake, it's not a adaptation, it's just an action movie. Neither is Indiana Jones, but they are clearly trying to emulate, in a more modern context, modern filmmaking context, these classic movies. And so this one shifts. And so if we're going to do that, they are different genres entirely, which is a problem.
Right. I agree. And that goes back to your Dubstep Metallica conversation, and saying that if you're going to shift genres, it's going to cause an issue. And it did for me. I saw Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in theaters, and when I saw it at the end, my complaint was, where were Mulder and Scully? You know what I mean? Like, what the crap is this? This is not the magic of faith, which is really what the first three movies are about.
Pretty much, yeah.
The magic of faith, whether it's faith in Kali and Kali Ma and Shiva.
Or God.
Or God, with the first and the third movie. Yeah. You know what I mean? And in these things, it's the magic of faith. This one is, all of that can be explained.
Yeah, here's aliens.
And you know what? And to me, I think this was another, and again, I think you have swayed me. I think it's fair to compare, actually.
Yeah.
Because now when I go back to episode 1 of Star Wars, and they're like, it's midichlorians. Here's the science behind it. And I was like, how dare you?
This is not what Star Wars is.
Right. You've ruined the magic of the Force.
Yes.
Literally. If that were a standalone movie, sure, fine, whatever. You know what these powers they have are. They explained it.
Yeah.
But because we compare it to its predecessors, that was maddening, literally maddening for me. It was angering because you have ruined something good.
You've taken something pre-established.
Yes.
Even if in the timeline of the movies, they are not, like, this is before. What we have seen is the Force is all around us. It binds us. It moves through us. It's not about this physical matter. It's about the Force. You not being able to lift an X-wing is not an issue of you being strong enough. It's an issue of you being having enough faith, essentially, in the Force. And now it's your number on my little machine is really high. You're powerful.
You're good at Force.
It's the opposite of you're a high level for you've gotten enough experience to get to a certain level. So it's the opposite, and that's my main issue with Indiana Jones 4 is, I think fairly, that it's not an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
My way to describe it is that it's like you have an Indiana Jones Mad Lib. And all of the nouns are the same. Like, if you filled out a Mad Lib for Indiana Jones 1 through 3. They're all very similar.
Yeah.
Very good at...
Particularly 1 and 3.
So now, 20 years later, they pick up that Mad Lib, and they're like, oh, let's make a new story. Well, it's got Indiana Jones still. It has to. Right. He's wearing the hat. He's got the whip. Let's see. Well, Marion Ravenwood. People liked her. She can come back. He goes on an adventure. He works at a school. He punches people, but every adjective was changed.
Yeah.
The tone of the movie changed. Instead of it says Indiana Jones is a tough, no-nonsense, punchy in the face kind of guy. He's now goofy, it's hard to describe. The tone of the movie is so different. I've seen a tally of how many people Indiana Jones directly kills in these movies, and while obviously on the at first glance that doesn't matter.
Right.
It does not matter, But that taken in comparison with the blood shown, the actual plot of the movie, the stakes at risk, we don't really know what is at risk here. Mostly in the fourth one, there is a clear cut, like, things can happen, and then we see it happen. In the tone is changed so drastically that even though on the surface, wow, look, it's Indiana Jones again, and he's going on an adventure. It's not an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
It should have been Chris Pratt does adventure things.
Yeah, and that would have been great.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It would have been, if it's the same script, it still would have had problems.
Right.
But
obviously,
it would have been less impactful on its audience if it had not been Indiana Jones.
Right. And I think the movie would have been better for it.
Yes.
And it's fair to yeah. All right.
But they wouldn't have had that opening box office, that weekend box office.
Yep.
So that's what they're going for. So that's what they did, even though they knew it was bad.
Dang it. Well, you've swayed me. All
Gotcha.
right. Yeah, you did. Yeah.
All right. Pay up. Oh, sorry.
Here's my soul.
Yep.
No, okay. So, yeah. All right. Okay. So we've come to this conclusion now where we say that despite what the standalone quality of a movie it is, if there are predecessors for it, it needs to be compared to its predecessors. Because
I don't mean to continue the conversation. I don't think it needs to be, but it's fair to do so.
No, I think it does need to be.
Oh,
I think you've swayed me to that point because it's a continuation of the story. It is.
In lots of ways.
Yeah.
More so than the original trilogy were continuations of each other.
Right. I mean, to go into the video game realm, like Mass Effect Andromeda. Mass Effect Andromeda, I'm sure, would have been a fine game.
On the surface, it seemed similar, but it really wasn't. Gameplay is a big thing there, too. That's a whole different thing.
Well, and again, I'm sure it would have been a fine game on its own, but when people were expecting the next Mass Effect...
Absolutely.
And I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
If you're going to call it Mass Effect, whatever, I think it's fair to say, well, then you dropped the ball, guys.
Yep.
It's your fault, so...
Take that, George Lucas.
Well, he made Mass Effect Andromeda?
Probably.
We're going to put this video game right on the fridge here, George.
There's that whole section of midichlorians. Just realizing that's probably George Lucas.
Which, by the way, okay, real quick thing before we finish. We're going to talk more about Star Wars.
Yes,
next week, we didn't want to talk too much about Star Wars because next week, we're going to be talking about The Last Jedi, rewatching it.
Yes.
And our opinions on rewatching it because I rewatched it and I had different opinions on it because I wasn't going into it immediately asking myself, we're going to find out who Rey's parents are. We're going to find out who Snoke is.
We're almost having the opposite conversation next
week,
where what's it like when you don't have expectations?
Right. And so, anyway, but those were expectations that we created, not that was given.
Exactly.
But anyway, so, but there was a moment that I really loved in Last Jedi that I wished for and came true. And it was Luke basically like giving the middle finger to midichlorians. There's a point in which he's talking to Rey about the Force and he says, the Jedi thought they could control it. They thought they knew it in its entirety. It wasn't until much later that we knew how wrong we were.
Yeah.
And it was basically just saying like, look, all of that stuff in the prequels,
it's stupid.
Forget about it.
I got
they were wrong and stupid.
Right.
So
the part I was looking forward to is Kylo Ren's nipple pants.
Yeah.
They go all the way up to his nipples. I don't know why.
He's got those and a newspaper and a cane. And
his pecs are like 6 feet wide. It's very strange. It's a weird...
Ben Swolo.
It caught me off guard.
Anyway, so let us know what you guys think about comparing movies to their predecessors. Should movies be taken on their own? When should we do that? When should we not do that? Let us know what you guys think. Thanks again for watching. And remember, saved games save lives.
Bye.